So thank you, Tom, and hi, everyone. So we gathered here to try and understand what could be the role of neuroscience in education, and is there a reason to combine the two fields? And it seems like in the last 10 years, or maybe 10 years or so, you tell us if you think otherwise, neuroscience is kind of emerged into many other fields. So you have neuroeconomics today, and you have neuroethics, and you have even neuroaesthetics. Everything likes to be neurofied, in a way of speak, in order to gain some maybe new insights and maybe developments into the field. And our question here is whether the same thing can also happen with education. Or is it some kind of an artificial combination that might not help us that much? And I'm happy to have with me Dr. Tom Schonberg, who you already heard, and Professor Lilach Shalev-Mevorach from Tel Aviv University, and Ohad Lavi, who is sitting next to me, and will tell us a little bit more about the business world and how we can maybe combine also that aspect into our discussion. So maybe Lilach, I'm going to start with you. Is there a connection between neuroscience and education? Should there be a connection?
There is a connection. This is no doubt about that. No, that's okay. Thank you. I'll be happy if you'll put on my slides, please. However, I think it's not that easy, the combination. I mean, the potential is huge, and I think many more, not just researchers, also from the business world and the education world, obviously. There are many people who are really interested in making this bridge, but the thing is that we need to build this bridge in order to be able to, first of all, define the most important and potential issues that could be elaborated in order to be able to implicate the cumulative knowledge that are being achieved in the research. Mm-hmm. I would like to start with a quick demonstration. Speaking about technologies, let's see. I'll present here a couple of statements, and please raise your hand if you think the first statement, if you think it's true. Individuals learn better when they receive information in their preferred learning style, for example, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Who thinks it's true? Thank you. Here's the next one. Short boosts of coordination exercises can improve integration of left and right hemispheric brain function. The name of our panel is here. Who thinks it's true? Great, thank you. Now, actually, both statements are wrong, are false. These are a couple of the many more neuromyths, okay? And it has been shown, and it was, there is emerging literature that shows that not only us, you and us, thinks it's true, but many teachers, practicing teachers in many countries around the world believe this is true. Now, obviously, this has a clear implication on how we teach our children and our students and each one of us, okay, in every day. So what I'm going to say that it's not, I mean, the promise is there, the promises are there, and I'm a great believer, and not just a believer, I believe I do.
Practice it.
Yeah, practically every day, day by day. However, we should be really responsible and careful because it is true, neuroscience is rapidly growing, and there are many issues that are relevant for learning. For instance, the example I would like to elaborate perhaps later on is the case of attention. It doesn't work. Because attention is a key factor in all sorts of learning, and I think, and even the previous presentation of Tom could involve also attention, among other things related to decision making, and I do think there's a great promise in the field of attention and exploring the possible ways to ensure that our learners will be attentive while experiencing all sorts of learning. If you like, I'll be able to give a couple of examples later on.
But maybe that's a good point also to ask you, Ohad, because attention is one of the focuses of your company, should I say? Is it a company? Company. Or initiative company. So do you see a way where you can use science, neuroscience, in order to enhance attention of students in the school, at the university maybe?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm just a businessman, a CEO, and I cheated on my exams in school. No, I'm joking. Our company actually deals with the diagnosis of ADHD, and we deal in large with attention. So we design a test that tests for ADHD. It's called MOXO. Some of you may have known about it. And now we're taking the same technology and we're applying it in schools. The idea is to create an attentional profile of children in schools, and by identifying their specific weaknesses and strengths, helping them perform better in school and also outside of school.
In a personalized manner?
In a personalized manner, of course. So we do it currently with a test, but we're also looking at some neuroscientific tools, like, for example, eye tracking, that has become a bit more in the headlines currently, to see if we can further analyze the profile of a child.
So other than, providing like a stamp of quality, will neuroscience have a true effect on education, Tom, in your opinion?
So I think neuroscience will have an effect on everything because, we are our brain, after all. You can be a dualist if you think about it, but everything is controlled here, emotions, intellect, everything. And I think just like you mentioned, so I work with MRI. I've been working with functional MRIs that, maybe some of you have been in this machine. And it was presented to the world in 1991. And since then, we're 25 years since then. And I think many people thought that it will solve so many problems. The first machines were in a hospital. And then psychiatrists had access to them and said, oh, we can put people inside this machine and then we'll see where schizophrenia comes from. And then, as you said, economists said, well, first of all, we still don't know how to solve schizophrenia or Alzheimer or Parkinson yet. We're working, there are drugs, it's working, but it's not that we have, the final of the true solution. Then economists came. Mm-hmm. Sure, now we'll decide between theories. So I think it's great to apply tools from basic research to applied fields just like education. But I think actually we have now the Mind-Educate Center at Tel Aviv University, where it's under the Sagol School of Neuroscience, and we're trying to harness, what we know about the brain to education. Mm-hmm. But actually, then in the panel, in the scientific board, when we were choosing projects, I actually said, no, let's not choose a project of functional MRI because it's not ready yet. So I think EEG and I think eye tracking is the future because I don't have my smartphone on me, but every smartphone has an eye tracker. So that is, I think, the future of taking what we know. I think it's a window to the brain, so we can't scan the brain in fMRI of people being in a classroom. But
just because it's not practical.
Yeah, it's not there yet. It's not there. But eye trackers and EEG, we can do all of that.
So if you try to envision what we will do with our cell phones in the classroom then, in terms of eye tracking and neuroscience?
I have to make you sign an NDA. No, but no, but I think that, basically you can choose it as a measurement tool. As a measurement tool that has now highly correlated with many measures of decision-making, mm-hmm. etc. And you can look at the reaction time where they're looking. So there are already cognitive startups load. It's like at reading.
I think that before, it's wonderful to think about eye tracker and EEG during learning, and we are doing such projects in the Mind-Educate Center that Tom just mentioned. However, I think there are many more issues that could be recruited from the science we already have done, not mm-hmm. just us, but all the community, in order to upgrade learning. Okay, and again, back to attention. It's a wonderful example because, as you just showed before, and here again, I would like to demonstrate it. Can you move it on? Okay. Okay, so we won't get into details, but you mentioned EEG, both of you, and here I would like to call your attention and explain how powerful and significant the fact of being attended to a certain stimulus. It doesn't matter what you're going to do with this stimulus, starting with a very, very basic visual decision, whether the Gabor patches are oriented horizontally or vertically. You see there, on the left, up on the left, there's a beep there, and the 100 millisecond, okay? A tenth of a second after the beep, attention is recruited to this area in the world. Now, although the beep is an auditory cue, visual attention is also enhanced to the very, very specific location, which means we are perceiving this simple or other more complicated, obviously, stimulus much more in a much more efficient way, which means we will be able to further elaborate the stimulus, we will be able to understand, to comprehend, to relate it with other relevant information we have stored in our brain, etc., etc., etc.
So Lilach, this is fascinating, but I'm trying to understand what are the practical. So just a second, what are the practical implications? So now, for example, if I'm a teacher, would you expect me to, just beep before I say a word?
Okay, so I think first of all, it's not that. I mean, I don't know if beep would be the right thing. And here I would like to stress that it is extremely important to make it individualized, personalized, because beep would work with a certain person, child or an adult, and for the other one it will be, like we jumped before when Yaki
made a terrible sound.
Yeah, so it must be personalized. However, yes, it can be essential whether, as a teacher or as a parent, okay, or it doesn't matter in what context. It makes a hell of a difference if a child is focusing not on your image, hearing what you're saying, focusing attention. And again, I would like to go further on. Can you help me there? Okay, move, please. This is the thing I wanted to say next. So I started with a very, very simple decision of a perceptual aspect of a stimulus, but among other things, we in the lab several years ago, we wanted to explore the role of attention in reading comprehension. So we examined reading comprehension and the ability of adolescents to stay focused, to stay attended over a long period of time on a monotonous task, what we call the ability to sustained attention. And we found that among these adolescents, half of them were with attention deficits, talking about ADHD, and half of them were just kids without attention deficit. And we divided the entire sample, both groups, to 3 levels according to their sustained attention ability. So poor sustained attention, medium sustained attention, and good sustained attention. And we found enormous effects on not just on reading, duration and reading, and accuracy of reading, but also on reading comprehension. Which means our ability to stay focused, not just when we are engaged on a very, very, challenging task and with all sorts of movements and virtual reality and game-like activity. This ability is crucial in many, many things that we are doing. And actually, I'm a bit worried because I think as times go by, we have less and less opportunities to develop sustained attention. And I'm talking about babies, kids.
Okay, so that I think is a crucial point that we have to maybe think about more closely or focus on, because we live at a time where people just say, we are changing, our kids are changing, and their abilities change. And it's interesting to see what we know and what we don't know about that. And I see, Tom, that you...
I want to say something about this, that in the problem with all these brain train problems, I want to issue a warning, because, lumosity They're a company of training the brain, and they've been sued because there's no scientific evidence. There's a huge study came out last year in Nature, which is our biggest journal, saying that actually this does not work. Sure, if you enjoy it, it's great, but it's not training your brain. I think I also discussed this with Lilach. In healthy participants, we don't have evidence. So I think if we apply more basic research and not just think about these, neuroscience, and I just read an article about neuromarketing. How do you know which company to beware of? If they have someone called the Chief Neuroscience Officer, okay, CNO, and look if that person might be super qualified to do stuff, but the question is, how is his training? So I'm this boring basic scientist who wants to bring the most crucial basic science elements into the real world, into the companies that will work, because I don't have applied experience. So I think we need to bridge that gap right now, but we have to be very rigorous. We have to do work, and the revolution is here. My motivation is my kids. I see them go to the bus stop. They have the smartphone. It's called, this, when they're looking, it's called the eye hunch. There's a name for it. It's done. The revolution is here. We need to adapt for that, but be scientists about it.
So do you see it when you profile the attention of kids, or I don't know how progressed your project is in that respect, but do you see a change in attentional profile?
I have to say something because I was waiting patiently to say a few things. First of all, I have to be a bit of a party pooper because we're focusing a lot on technology, and when you go to congresses, you see all these fancy companies that have all these virtual realities and even eye tracking, and we forget the basics that the majority of knowledge we already have. And what I mean by that is, for example, in ADHD, when you diagnose a child and you find out that he has ADHD, the system tends to look at them as a group and say, oh, you have ADHD, here 10% extra time on your test. Well, guess what? For most kids, it doesn't work. I have a son, he's 17 years old, he has ADHD. He got this 10% extra time, great. He's the first one handling the test, the first one. Why? Because he's impulsive, he's not inattentive. So for my son, for example, one of the tips that we actually integrate in our system is to teach the teacher, okay, that her main task is not teach, is to help children learn, is how to help my son, for example, overcome his impulsive reactions. So for example, for impulsive children, we would recommend writing some bullet points beside the answer before starting to write, because he has some organization problems as well. So where this is good for every child, for my son who's impulsive, it's a must, because if he doesn't do that, he just throws everything he knows into the answer, and then he goes out of the test feeling great, hey, I knew everything, I should get 100, and then he fails the test. And that's what I'm saying, that we should focus more on what we have.
Yeah, but going back to trying to see whether kids of our time are different and how they're different in their learning abilities, do you have data on that or not yet?
We're not a data company.
Yeah.
We work a lot with universities to try and understand actually positive aspects of ADHD. That's my personal passion.
But with this attentional profiling, or this project is still too early
to... It's a good question. There was a survey done in the United States that showed that around 50% of people believe that they have attentional difficulties. It's amazing. But the statistics actually show that the prevalence is around 5% worldwide. So it's nothing near 50%.
Yeah.
So we believe phones and screens and everything is really impacting our attention, where I believe this is an evolution and not a disability.
Yeah, and at this point, I also think that we are talking about ADHD, and no doubt they suffer from many, many problems. And absolutely, I agree with everything you've just said about treating the ADHD group as it was. They were, a single. They had as if they had a single prototype. It's far from being the truth, and it's very important to be able to identify the personal. Profile, attention profile, and cognitive profile of each kid or of each student, and we're doing these things actually in our lab, in the attention lab in the School of Education, just in the campus, not so far from here. But what I wanted to say is that everything we are talking is relevant to the entire population, because you don't need to have an attention deficit disorder in order to
benefit from attention.
To benefit from all sorts of personalization adjustments. And we know it for sure. And when I said before, there are many things we can really use. I'm talking about very, very simple things.
So let's be specific.
Yeah. So here, for instance, a very, very simple thing that we found that make a real difference for kids with ADHD, by the way, is spacing. Okay, the font size, the spacing, not between the letters, but between the words and also the lines, may be a real facilitator.
Do we know why?
Yeah, I mean, we think actually we thought we thought theoretically that it would help people with a problem in focusing attention on a restricted area in the visual field, the selective attention deficit. However, we found that it was really helpful for kids, adolescents, so to speak, with problems in sustained attention. And the reason we think it was helpful for them is that imagine a very dense text and much more spread text in front of you. There is a difference in the attention demand. So in the more sparse format of the text, then we actually, what we've done is we decrease the demand for attention. And we found that it really made a real difference for the ones who had problems in sustained attention. So that's a very, very easy thing to apply. Another technique that I expected to be even more effective is highlighting.
Just before that, so just so I understand, is that specific for people with ADHD, or would it help me too?
Also, if you suffer from poor sustained attention, it will help you. Alternatively, when you're really tired, okay, which impairs our ability to stay focused, it will help you too. Okay?
So we have two practical advices already.
This is really, really something that is very easy to apply. And another thing I really think hold great promise, and again, it's very, very difficult, very, very easy, to try and to develop, is highlighting. Okay, highlighting the text according to your personal rate of reading, obviously. Again, this is something that could be a real difference can make a real difference for kids who suffer from both ADHD and reading.
So just to make sure we all understand, you're not referring to highlighting the important stuff, which is what we do when we summarize. You mean that it will be contingent upon your gaze?
Yeah.
And as long as your eyes progress towards the next word, it will be highlighted that it will capture your attention on that word.
Synchronized with the rate of reading. Okay, so that's another practical aspect. But there are many other aspects of text or other activities that could be, again, personalized. And as I mentioned before, it is very important to make the adjustment on a personalized level.
Yeah. Just want to take both these points and what Ohad said about personalization. So I think this was one of the problems that we had, that we couldn't really use all these amazing brain technologies really that fMRI brought because of the costs, and to personalize it takes a lot. You know, as you said, like every student, every child, every student, it's different. We are getting to that era that we'll be able to scan 100 people and then look at that individualization. I think it is important because I am trying to find this pathway in the brain for enhanced processing with what I just showed you. But it might be slightly different. So there's a group average, but it might be different. And the idea is to find, as you said, the quickest test to do that. The brain is great. It's an anchor. It's tissue. It has limits, and we can use it as an anchor, but we don't have to. The whole idea is to find this behavior measure for the individualized person and then find the neural correlate. So we'll get there. Maybe 5 years we will be able, with the cost coming down and everything.
So
there is hope.
Let's go into fantasy land. So if I'm sending my kids to school, then on the first day, they get some kind of profiling. We see what their attentional profile is, what are the specific deficits, and then there is some kind of a computer maybe that takes the text from the books and then projects them in a way that would be specific for them.
In Fantasyland, you don't have to send them to school, right? That's the whole idea. That's Fantasyland.
Well, actually, what you said is not such a fantasy. Maybe integrating it with newer technologies of highlighting, yes, but there are already some tricks and tips and recommendations that you can teach teachers how to address children differently.
Okay, so let's maybe take the opportunity to teach some of these. Can you?
So, for example, if you have a child that is fidgeting, right, he's like this all the time, he's like this. Many teachers will view that child as annoying, right? He's interfering with the class, he's making noise, etc.
It could
And
be
there's a
annoying.
lot of technologies now that give points.
Be honest.
Yeah.
Yes, but today you have some technologies for teachers to give points to children on changing their behaviors. And they can use these points later on to do stuff. But what most teachers don't know is that by taking this fidgeting from the child, it actually is taking away the child's ability to concentrate because this is his strategy.
Yeah.
So we would offer that teacher other tools on how to help the child stay focused while reducing the fidgeting. So, for example, giving them a sponge ball that is not noisy, it doesn't interfere with anyone, but still allows them to stay focused.
The pedals below
But
the pedals
All right,
to pedal
yeah,
below
that's true.
the desk.
I think this is a great example of how important it is to really work on bridging the gap, because teachers don't know all these things and many other things that can really make change on a daily basis. And so this is not to, research and collaboration between researchers, brain researchers and education specialists, etc. This is essential, I agree, but we also have, if we're talking about take-home message, we also, we must keep in mind that we must train our teachers, or tomorrow's teachers, to be able to collaborate with them too.
And we're indeed approaching the end of our discussion, but I wanted to also ask you, you mentioned the dangers of, taking neuroscience into education. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so for example, the first statement that I showed at the beginning, which is something that we, all of us, or most of us really share, the belief that we have to adjust the way of teaching to the learning preference style. So this leads to real danger, because it means teachers are, and I know this is how teachers are being taught. I mean, this is not just there in the papers somewhere. So this is something that must be changed, because there are many, many studies from long ago and also up to date that show the other way around, that if we want that the learning will be profound and meaningful, etc., there's a benefit of using several modalities. So if
combining them instead of focusing on the preferred one.
Yes, this is definitely should lead to a more profound learning. This is one thing, and the other thing is that we wouldn't like to neglect the non-preferred channel or the non-preferred modality, because in life we keep perceiving stimuli from all modalities, and we should be able to process effectively all stimuli in all modalities.
But but the danger here is not by introducing neuroscience, is by taking false ideas from science. So if we know the science, we can actually benefit.
Exactly. But this is what's happening. I mean, for quite a while now, and this is something that is very, very deep inside the system of teaching. Okay, and so this is something we must change.
Okay, and I suggest that we'll also take the chance for our concluding remarks. Yes.
I think just last comment is just we need to be critical thinkers in everything we do in life. So I can do, brain research in my lab, and I can really do it very rigorously. But I try to apply the same critical thinking to everything I do. And when I showed you this, these stairs, which is great, it's ingenious. But as a scientist, I would need to go and test it in several places in the city and different times, etc. But we can still take, we don't have to do all the time empirical controlled studies in the field, but we need to be critical thinkers with everything we do, and it's flashy, it's cool, it's great, but there are basic ideas we can apply.
Ohad.
We tell our children that they are special. Every child is different. I have 3 kids, everyone is totally different. but we still try to treat them the same in the education system. So even if we put new technologies in and we do distance learning and we do virtual realities and stuff, it doesn't fit with every child. And I think this is my specific thought about this, that we need to understand better the children and adjust the system to them, not the other way around.
And I think that the theme that you're raising here will also come back when we have the next panel after a few minutes, in which we'll also discuss big data and personalization in education. So I think that theme will be incorporated quite well with the discussion over there. So I want to thank the three of you. Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. And Yuval, I think you're up next.